The adenovirus has a capsid, you can see right here, just like kind of I drew in my little diagram, and it also has DNA inside it. You see this DNA strand? And then you can see these small spikes, which are made out of proteins that emerge from the icosahedral shape. Let's see if we can find a picture showing the shape. There we go. I like this one. So there you have it. That is kind of the general shape of the adenovirus or adenovirus. There are more than 50 types of this virus that currently exist, and they come from multiple sources. So you can have adenovirus coming from humans. We've identified it from animals. Let me see if I can list the animals that we found it in. We have identified adenovirus in cows, ducks, opossum, bats, dogs, horses, humans, snakes, turkeys, pigs, frogs, and cats. So this brings me to an interesting comment that I would like to make, and that I hope I'm not stepping on any toes, but I do want to tell you, some people have tried to say bad things about the people in China who were working at that market that was selling animals of various types. They're trying to say that the people that were at that market were eating or touching or breathing products from the animals that caused this virus. And so some people are trying to blame this virus on the behaviors and the decisions of those people. Well, I need you to understand something. How many of you have a dog or a cat? And have you ever wondered what happens when you kiss your dog, or you let your dog lick you, or your cat, you touch your cat? Well, have you ever seen a dog lick its backside, or a cat, or vice versa? Well, if a dog or a cat, yes, your pet, has an infection, and that infection is intestinal or even respiratory, that right there, the transmission of an infection from your own pet to you, is a viable source of transmission of infection. And as we go through more of these viruses, you will discover that many of the viruses come from human interaction with animals. I think that's how I want to say it. So you've got human interaction with animals where you pet the animals, kissing your animal on the mouth, or even kissing it on its body, letting the animal lick you. Then, of course, you have other ways of getting an infection. You can get an infection if you were to, now referring to cows and pigs, eating meat is one way to get an infection. You can get it from the organs of the meat. And then, of course, if the animal has an infection in its respiratory tract, the animal can cough or sneeze or whatever and spread that infection to you. Or if the animal has diarrhea and gets into the animal feces, which then gets onto the ground and dries up and spreads when the air or the wind blows, you can see that there are many ways to get a bacteria or a virus, right now we're talking about viruses, from an animal source to a person. So you've got to be really careful in these situations and try not to cast blame on people, because, I mean, I eat hamburgers and hot dogs and a little bit of this and that. Have I ever pet a dog or a cat? Yes, I have. We are all human. So let's try not to be judgmental to our fellow brothers and sisters from the East. Okay, a little bit more discussion about the adenovirus or the adenovirus. The adenovirus typically is a virus that causes symptoms that for most of us are going to be just like the common cold. In fact, one of the causative organisms of the common cold is the adenovirus. What are the symptoms? Well, let's take it from the top. Common cold symptoms or adenovirus symptoms, which are more common in children than they are in adults, but they can occur in adults, are headache, fever, a runny nose, congestion, nasal congestion, ear pain, let's see, sore throat. You can actually develop tonsillitis, and this tonsillitis that can sometimes occur is hard to tell between tonsillitis caused by adenovirus or tonsillitis caused by strep throat. It can be tricky unless you do a throat culture. Let's see, it can cause swollen lymph nodes in your neck, cough, and lower respiratory infections. So you have the upper respiratory region, nose and mouth, and then you've got the lower respiratory region, trachea and lungs. So the adenovirus can cause upper respiratory and also lower respiratory infections. It can also cause 4 other major areas of illness that can be very bad. Number 1, meningitis, infection inside the coverings of the brain. That can be very severe. Number 2, eye infection, infection in the conjunctiva covering of the eye. Number 3, gastrointestinal or infection in your intestinal tract, which can cause vomiting and primarily diarrhea, a watery type of diarrhea. But we see more often in children than in adults, but it can also occur in adults. And then number 4, this is kind of a rare thing that adenovirus can cause. It's called hemorrhagic cystitis. I'm kind of touching on a lot of things right now. I'll probably have to come back around and start to explain things in more detail, but I'm putting this in here so that it's in a defined place, a video about adenovirus. Hemorrhagic cystitis is when your bladder cyst starts to have bleeding. Hemorrhagic cystitis, bleeding from the bladder. All right, remember when I was talking with you a little bit ago about the hand washing and hand sanitizers? Well, I've got some news for you, and that news is, you see that little sink back there? The adenovirus. Let's see if I have any hand sanitizer. There's no hand sanitizer in here right now. The adenovirus is not killed by hand sanitizer. The rhinovirus, which we just learned about, both of these viruses we also learned, do not have a third or a lipid outer layer. These 2 viruses that do not contain a lipid outer layer, also hand sanitizer does not work. Also, hand sanitizer does not work very well on these viruses. What works well is what we learned before. Good old-fashioned washing your hands. Actually, washing your hands without any soap works, but washing your hands with soap works even better. I'm not really doing good hand washing, but I think you get the point, right? So, what wisdom can we learn? Well, we can learn that so far we've learned about the coronavirus, that the hand sanitizers, if kept on your hands, and this is the research we found occurred recently, if you keep it on your hands for 4 minutes, it can inactivate the virus. We also just learned that hand sanitizer does not work on adenovirus, and it doesn't work very well on rhinovirus. There are other viruses that we're going to talk about, and you're going to kind of pick up a running theme, and that theme is that good old-fashioned hand washing with good old-fashioned bar soap or liquid soap is probably the best thing that you can do as far as keeping your hands clean and preventing infection. Are there other things that you can do to prevent infection? Yes, that's why people are buying the masks. I'll get to that soon, and I'll actually show you a mask. We'll look at the structure of the mask. I'll show you how to put it on. That's coming.